What happens when a simple act of kindness toward a complete stranger leads to the most unexpected revelation of your life? Today's story will show you how one man's generous gesture at a coffee shop uncovered a secret so shocking it changed everything he thought he knew about wealth, identity, and the power of human connection. This isn't just about paying someone's bill. It's about discovering that the person you help might be hiding something extraordinary that will leave you speechless. Before we dive into this incredible story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop a comment below and tell me which city you're tuning in from. Are you watching from New York, London, São Paulo, Tokyo? Let me know. I love connecting with viewers from around the world. Now let's begin this amazing journey. The morning rain painted intricate patterns on the windows of Café Luna, one of downtown's most beloved coffee shops. The familiar aroma of freshly ground beans mixed with the gentle hum of conversation created the perfect soundtrack for another ordinary Tuesday, or so Rodolfo thought. At 32, Rodolfo had learned to appreciate life's simple pleasures. His tall frame was always impeccably dressed. Today, in a crisp navy suit that spoke of professionalism without arrogance. As a marketing consultant, he understood the importance of first impressions, but more than that, he genuinely cared about treating people with respect and kindness. He stood in line, scrolling through his phone when he noticed her. She was sitting alone at a corner table, her beautiful curly brown hair catching the soft light filtering through the rain-streaked windows. 25, maybe younger, with an elegance that seemed effortless yet somehow guarded. She wore simple jeans and a cream-colored sweater, but there was something about her posture, the way she held herself, that suggested depths beneath the surface. Daphne, though Rodolfo didn't know her name yet, was staring at her phone with an expression of growing concern. Her coffee sat untouched, growing cold as she seemed to wrestle with some internal dilemma. "Next," called the barista. Rodolfo ordered his usual, a large Americano, with an extra shot, and was about to step aside when he heard a soft, frustrated sigh from behind him. "I'm sorry," came a melodious voice with just a hint of embarrassment, "but could you try running my card one more time?" He glanced over his shoulder to see the young woman with curly hair standing at the counter, her cheeks slightly flushed as she handed over what appeared to be a worn debit card. The barista, a college student with kind eyes, ran the card again. The machine beeped disapprovingly. "I'm really sorry, miss, but it's still declining. Do you have another form of payment?" Daphne's face fell. She began searching through her purse with increasing desperation, checking every pocket, every compartment. Her hands were shaking slightly, not from cold, but from what appeared to be genuine distress. I thought I had some cash, but—" her voice trailed off. The line behind her was growing longer, and Rodolfo could see the weight of embarrassment settling on her shoulders, like a heavy coat. Other customers were beginning to shift impatiently, checking their watches, sighing audibly. Without hesitation, Rodolfo stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said gently, addressing the barista. "I'd like to cover her order, please." Both Daphne and the barista looked up in surprise. The young woman's eyes, a striking hazel that seemed to hold secrets, met his for the first time. "Oh no, you really don't have to," she began, her voice carrying a mixture of gratitude and something else. Was it panic? "Please, I insist," Rodolfo said with a warm smile. "We've all been there. What did you order?" Just a small cappuccino and a blueberry muffin," she said quietly, looking as if she might cry from embarrassment. "Make that a large cappuccino," Rodolfo told the barista, pulling out his credit card. "And add one of those chocolate croissants, too. They're excellent here." As he paid, he couldn't help but notice how the woman, Daphne, was studying him with an intensity that seemed disproportionate to the simple act of kindness he was performing. There was something almost analytical in her gaze, as if she was trying to solve a puzzle he didn't even know existed. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea how much this means to me." There was something in the way she said it, not just grateful, but almost desperate, that made Rodolfo look at her more carefully. Despite her simple clothes and apparent financial difficulties, there was something refined about her speech, her mannerisms, She held herself like someone accustomed to a different kind of life. "I'm Rodolfo," he said, extending his hand. She hesitated for just a fraction of a second before taking it. Her handshake was firm, confident, not what he'd expect from someone who couldn't afford a cup of coffee. "Daphine," she replied, "and I really can't thank you enough. Would you mind if I joined you?" he asked, surprising himself with the boldness of the question. "I hate drinking alone, and you look like you could use some company." Again that hesitation, that analytical look. Then slowly she nodded. "I'd like that." They found a quiet table by the window, where the rain continued its gentle percussion against the glass. As they settled in with their drinks, Rodolfo noticed several curious details about his new companion. Her phone, which she'd placed face down on the table, appeared to be the latest model, expensive, pristine. Her watch, partially hidden by her sweater sleeve, caught the light in a way that suggested it wasn't costume jewelry. And when she lifted her cappuccino, her nails were professionally manicured, despite her claims of financial difficulty. "So, Daphine," he began, stirring his Americano, "what brings you to Café Luna on this rainy Tuesday morning?" She took a sip of her cappuccino, and he could see her mind working behind those intelligent hazel eyes. I was supposed to meet someone," she said finally. "But they didn't show up. Business or personal?" Another pause. "Complicated." Rodolfo smiled. "The best relationships usually are." For the first time since he'd noticed her, Daphine smiled, really smiled, and it transformed her entire face. The worry lines smoothed, her eyes brightened, and he caught a glimpse of what appeared to be a naturally joyful spirit beneath whatever burden she was carrying. "What about you, Rodolfo? Do you make a habit of rescuing strangers in coffee shops?" "Only on days ending in Y," he replied, earning another smile. "Actually, no. I don't know. You looked like you were having the kind of day where the universe decides to test you all at once." "You have no idea," she murmured, her smile fading slightly. "Want to talk about it?" Daphine studied him for a long moment, as if weighing something significant. "What do you do for work, Rodolfo?" The subject change was abrupt, almost jarring, but he rolled with it. "Marketing consultant. I help small businesses figure out how to reach their customers more effectively. It's not glamorous, but it's rewarding." "What about you?" "I'm between jobs right now," she said, which he sensed was both true and not the whole truth. "Ah, that explains the card situation. Job hunting is tough. You could say that." They talked for over an hour, the conversation flowing surprisingly easily despite Daphine's obvious guardedness. She was intelligent, well-educated, and had opinions on everything from literature to politics to the best way to make pasta sauce. But every time the conversation veered toward anything personal, her background, her family, her recent past, she would skillfully redirect. Rodolfo found himself increasingly intrigued. There was clearly much more to Daphine than met the eye, and the contradictions were piling up. Her expensive accessories, her refined manner of speaking, her broad knowledge of topics that suggested extensive education or travel. Farsi, none of it matched with someone who couldn't afford a cup of coffee. "I should probably get going," Daphine said finally, glancing at her phone. "I have an appointment." "Of course. I'm glad we got to chat." As she gathered her things, Rodolfo made a decision that surprised him. "Daphine, I know this might sound forward, but would you like to have dinner tomorrow night? There's this little Italian place that makes incredible risotto, and I'd love to continue our conversation." She froze, her purse halfway to her shoulder. That's very sweet, but I don't think that's a good idea." "Because you don't know me?" "Because you don't know me." There was something almost ominous in the way she said it, but also sad, as if she wanted to say yes but couldn't allow herself to. "Well," Rodolfo said, pulling out his business card, "in case you change your mind." "No pressure." Daphine took the card, studying it for a moment before slipping it into her purse. "Thank you again for the coffee. And the kindness. You really have no idea. How much it meant to you, I know. You mentioned that." She started to leave, then turned back. "Rodolfo?" "Yes. Be careful who you help. Not everyone is who they appear to be." And with that cryptic warning, she was gone, leaving him sitting alone, with a head full of questions and a heart that was surprisingly affected by the mysterious woman with curly hair and secrets in her eyes. That night, Rodolfo found himself unable to concentrate on work. Daphine's parting words echoed in his mind. Be careful who you help. Not everyone is who they appear to be. What had she meant by that? Was she warning him about people in general, or about herself specifically? Unable to shake his curiosity, he found himself doing something he'd never done before, trying to find information about someone he'd just met. He started with social media, searching for Daphine in various combinations, but came up empty. No Facebook, no Instagram, no LinkedIn profile he could find. Strange. In today's world, almost everyone had some kind of digital footprint. The next morning, he found himself back at Café Luna, ostensibly for his usual coffee, but secretly hoping to see her again. She wasn't there, but something interesting happened. "You're back," said the barista from yesterday. Maya, according to her name tag. "Looking for your friend." "Friend?" "The woman whose coffee you bought yesterday. She came back later after you left, asked if I knew who you were." Rodolfo's pulse quickened. "What did you tell her?" "Just that you're a regular. Come in most mornings, always polite, good tipper." She seemed really interested, though. Asked a lot of questions. "What kind of questions?" Maya leaned in conspiratorially. "About your routine. What time you usually come in. Whether you ever meet clients here." Honestly, it was a little weird. Like she was, I don't know, investigating you or something. A chill ran down Rodolfo's spine. Why would Daphine be investigating him? Unless, Maya, did she seem nervous when she was asking these questions? More than nervous. She seemed scared. That evening, Rodolfo was working late in his home office when his phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" "Rodolfo." "It's Daphine." His heart jumped. "Daphine. I was hoping you'd call. How did you get my number?" "Your business card, remember?" "Right, of course. Listen, about that dinner invitation. Actually, that's why I'm calling. I think I'd like to take you up on it, but not a restaurant. Could you come to my place instead? I'll cook." It was an unusual request, but he found himself saying yes before he'd even fully processed it. Great. Tomorrow night. 7 o'clock, she gave him an address in one of the city's most exclusive neighborhoods. "And, Rodolfo, please don't mention to anyone that you're meeting me. It's complicated. More complications, more mysteries, but also more intrigue." The address she'd given him turned out to be a sleek, modern apartment building with a doorman and valet parking. As he rode the elevator to the penthouse floor, Rodolfo felt increasingly out of place. This was not the home of someone who couldn't afford a cappuccino. The door to apartment 47A was answered by Daphine, but she looked transformed. Gone were the simple jeans and sweater. She was wearing an elegant black dress that probably cost more than he made in a month, and her curly hair was styled in a sophisticated updo that revealed diamond earrings catching the light. "Come in," she said, but her smile seemed forced. The apartment was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city skyline. The furniture was clearly designer, the artwork on the walls museum quality. This was the home of someone with serious wealth. "Daphine," he said slowly, "I think we need to talk." She closed the door and leaned against it, as if gathering courage. "I know you have questions." "A few thousand, actually. Starting with, who are you really?" She walked to the windows, looking out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the growing darkness. "My full name is Daphine Castellanos. My father is Ricardo Castellanos." The name hit Rodolfo like a physical blow. Ricardo Castellanos was one of the wealthiest men in the country, a business mogul whose empire spanned everything, from real estate to technology to media. His daughter would be. "You're an heiress," he said quietly. "I'm worth approximately $400 million, she said, her voice flat, matter-of-fact. "Give or take." Rodolfo sank into one of her expensive chairs, his mind reeling. "Then why was I in that coffee shop unable to pay for a cappuccino?" She turned to face him, and he could see tears forming in her eyes. "Because someone is trying to kill me, Rodolfo, and I'm running out of people I can trust." The dangerous truth. The words hung in the air like a live wire. Rodolfo stared at Daphine, searching her face for any sign that she was joking, exaggerating, being dramatic. He found none. "Someone is trying to kill you," he repeated slowly. She nodded, wrapping her arms around herself as if she was cold. "For the past 6 months, there have been 3 attempts on my life. The first one I thought was an accident. The brakes on my car failed while I was driving down a mountain road. I was lucky to survive." She moved to the kitchen, needing something to do with her hands, and began preparing coffee with movements that were too precise, too controlled. "The second time, someone tampered with the gas line in my other apartment, the one downtown. If I hadn't smelled the leak when I did," she shuddered. "The third time was 2 weeks ago. Someone shot at me while I was jogging in Central Park, missed by inches." Rodolfo felt the world tilting around him. "Have you gone to the police?" "My father hired private security. The best money can buy. But here's the thing, Rodolfo, I think the person trying to kill me is someone close to the family, someone with inside information about my movements, my habits, my security protocols." "Your father?" "God, no. My father would move mountains to protect me. But someone in his inner circle, someone who knows our routines, our safe houses, our security procedures." She poured the coffee, and he noticed her hands were shaking slightly. "So what were you doing in that coffee shop?" "Running away. I'd been staying in a safe house for 2 weeks. But yesterday morning I discovered that someone had been asking questions about me at the building across the street, taking photos. I panicked, grabbed some cash and a few things and ran. But you said your card was declined. I took cash, but I dropped my purse while running to catch a taxi. All my money scattered, and I was too scared to stop and collect it. By the time I got to the coffee shop, I had maybe $3 in change. The pieces were beginning to fit together, but the picture they formed was terrifying." "Daphne, why are you telling me this? You don't even know me." She sat down across from him, cradling her coffee cup like it was an anchor to reality. "Because you're the first person in months who's shown me genuine kindness without wanting something in return. And because—" she paused, looking uncertain for the first time since she'd started her story. "Because I had you investigated." "You what?" "After you left the coffee shop, I hired a private detective to look into your background. I had to know if you were safe, if your kindness was real, or if you were somehow connected to whoever is trying to hurt me." Rodolfo set down his coffee cup with more force than necessary. "And? You're exactly who you appear to be. Rodolfo Martinez, 32. Marketing consultant. Lives alone, no criminal record. Pays his taxes. Volunteers at a literacy program on weekends. The detective found literally nothing suspicious about you. You're what he called aggressively normal." Despite everything, Rodolfo found himself smiling slightly at that description. "So I'm boring enough to be trustworthy?" "You're decent enough to be trustworthy. Do you know how rare that is in my world?" He was beginning to understand the weight she'd been carrying, the isolation that came with not knowing who to trust. "What do you need from me?" The question seemed to surprise her. "Nothing. I wanted you to know the truth before you got too involved with me. Because being around me is dangerous, Rodolfo. Whoever is trying to kill me won't hesitate to hurt anyone who gets in their way. Maybe that's my decision to make." She looked at him with something that might have been hope. "You don't understand. These people have unlimited resources. They've already proven they're willing to kill. If they think you're helping me, then we'll have to make sure they don't think that." "We? Daphne, I'm not walking away from this. From you, but we need help. Professional help. I told you my father's security team might be compromised. You said so yourself. We need someone outside your father's organization. Someone with no connection to your family or their business." She was quiet for a long moment, considering. "I have someone in mind," she said finally. "A former FBI agent who now does private security consulting. She's helped some friends of my father's with discrete situations." "Then call her. Rodolfo, you need to understand what you're signing up for. If you help me, your life will never be the same. You'll have to disappear for a while, change your routines, possibly relocate permanently. Are you really willing to do that for someone you met yesterday?" He looked at her, really looked at her. Beneath the expensive dress and the diamond earrings, beneath the sophisticated exterior and the incredible wealth. He saw a young woman who was terrified and alone, someone who'd been betrayed by people she should have been able to trust, who was running for her life with nowhere safe to go. But he also saw strength, intelligence, courage. She could have hired an army of bodyguards and hidden in a fortress somewhere. Instead, she was actively trying to figure out who was targeting her and why, even though it put her at greater risk. "Yes," he said simply. Tears spilled over and ran down her cheeks. "Why?" "Because it's the right thing to do. And because—" he paused, surprised by his own honesty. "Because I think I'm falling for you, Agent Rebecca." Torres arrived at Daphine's apartment at exactly 9 o'clock the next morning. She was a compact woman in her 40s with steel grey eyes that seemed to catalogue every detail of her surroundings. Within seconds of entering, "Show me everything," she said without preamble. For the next 3 hours, Daphine walked Torres through each attempt on her life, providing photographs, police reports, and detailed timelines. Rodolfo sat quietly, absorbing information that painted an increasingly disturbing picture. "The pattern is escalating," Torres said finally, spreading crime scene photos across the coffee table. "Brake failure could have been accidental, though the timing was suspicious. The gas leak was definitely intentional, but could be blamed on faulty maintenance. But the shooting?" She tapped the photo showing bullet holes in a tree. "That was personal. Close-range, high-powered rifle. Someone wanted to be sure." "What does that tell us?" Daphine asked. "That whoever is doing this is getting frustrated. The first 2 attempts were subtle, designed to look like accidents. When those failed, they got desperate." Torres pulled out a tablet and began making notes. "I need complete access to your family's financial records, business dealings, and personal relationships. And I need to know about anyone who might benefit from your death." Daphine's face went pale. "You think someone is trying to kill me for money? $400 million is a lot of motive. Who inherits if you die?" "My younger brother, Marcus. But he would never. Everyone is a suspect until proven otherwise. Who else has access to your schedule, your security details?" The list was longer than Rodolfo had expected. Daphine's father's business partner, his personal assistant, the head of security, 2 family lawyers, a financial advisor, and several household staff members. "We need to narrow this down," Torres said. "Who knew about your safe house?" "Only my father and Thomas, our head of security. And who knew you'd be jogging in Central Park that morning?" Daphine thought for a moment. "I told my father the night before. Thomas would have known because he arranged the security. Detail and—" She paused. "I mentioned it to David Morrison. He's my father's business partner. We were having lunch and he suggested jogging as a good way to clear my head." Torres and Rodolfo exchanged a look. "Tell me about David Morrison." "He's been my father's partner for 15 years. Built the business together from nothing. He's like an uncle to me." "Any financial problems? Recent changes in behavior?" "Not that I know of, but—" Daphine frowned. "Now that you mention it, he has been asking a lot of questions about my trust fund lately, wanting to know about the terms, when I get full access to the money." "And when do you?" "On my 26th birthday, which is next month." Another meaningful look between Torres and Rodolfo. "Ms. Castellanos, I think we need to have a conversation with your father tonight, without telling anyone else about it first." That evening, they met Ricardo Castellanos at his private office downtown. He was a distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and the kind of presence that commanded attention, even in casual clothes. "Papa," Daphine said, hugging him tightly, "we need to talk." For the next hour, they laid out Torres's suspicions about David Morrison. Ricardo's face grew increasingly grave as the evidence mounted. "David has been asking me about Daphine's trust fund, too," he admitted. "I thought he was just being thorough. He's one of the trustees. But if what you're saying is true, we need to look at the business finances," Torres said. "Specifically, any dealings that Morrison had sole control over." Ricardo was quiet for a long moment. "There have been some irregularities, large transfers that I couldn't account for. David said they were investments, but when I asked for details, he was evasive." "How much money are we talking about?" 50 million, maybe more." The room fell silent. If Morrison has been embezzling, Torres said slowly, and if Daphine's death would make it harder to detect or prosecute, he's been stealing from us, Ricardo said, his voice filled with a mixture of betrayal and rage. And when he realized he was going to be caught, he decided to kill my daughter to cover it up. The plan they devised was dangerous but elegant in its simplicity. Daphine would reach out to David Morrison, telling him she was scared and needed somewhere safe to stay. She would mention that she was thinking of accessing her trust fund early to hire additional security, something that would require Morrison's signature as a trustee. He'll have to act fast, Torres explained. If she accesses the trust fund, the financial audit that follows might expose his embezzlement. He'll want to stop her before that happens. And we'll be waiting, Rodolfo added, though Torres had made it clear that his role was to stay far away from any actual confrontation. This is incredibly dangerous, Daphine protested. If something goes wrong, we'll have backup, Torres assured her. But we need him to show his hand. Right now, all we have is circumstantial evidence. We need him to act. The call was made from Daphine's apartment, with Torres recording everything. David! Daphine's voice was perfectly pitched to sound frightened and desperate. I need your help. Daphine, thank God. Your father is worried sick. Where are you? I can't tell you over the phone. Someone might be listening. But I need somewhere safe to stay, and I'm thinking of accessing my trust fund early to hire better security. There was a pause on the other end of the line. That's a big decision, Daphine. Maybe we should discuss it with your father first. I don't want to worry him more than I already have. You're a trustee. You can approve the early access, right? Well, yes, but there are procedures. David, I'm scared. Really scared. Can we meet tomorrow night? Somewhere private where we can talk? Another pause, longer this time. Of course. There's a warehouse in the industrial district. We use it for storage sometimes. It's secure, private. Tomorrow night at 9? Perfect. And David? Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you. After hanging up, Daphine looked shaken. I can't believe he's really going to try to kill me. We don't know that for certain yet, Torres said, though her expression suggested she thought otherwise. But we'll be ready either way. The next evening, Rodolfo found himself in the back of an unmarked van 2 blocks away from the warehouse, watching Torres's team prepare their equipment. He'd argued strenuously about being excluded from the operation, but Torres had been adamant. You're a civilian, a marketing consultant. You have no training for this kind of situation. And Daphine does? Daphine is the bait. You'd just be a liability. It was harsh, but probably true. Still, as he watched Daphine walk toward the warehouse wearing a wire and a bulletproof vest hidden under her jacket, every instinct he had was screaming at him to follow her. She'll be fine, Torres said, noting his obvious distress. My team has done this hundreds of times. Through the wire, they could hear Daphine's footsteps echoing in the empty warehouse. She was alone, as promised, but Torres's team had positioned themselves throughout the building before she arrived. David! Daphine's voice came through clearly. Are you here? Over here, sweetheart. Morrison's voice was warm, friendly, exactly like the surrogate uncle he'd always been to her. It made what happened next even more chilling. I brought the trust fund paperwork, he said. But before we deal with that, we need to talk about something else. What do you mean? I know you've been investigating me, Daphine. I know about the security consultant you hired. I know about your new boyfriend. In the van, Rodolfo felt his blood run cold. David, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Morrison's voice had changed completely, becoming harsh and threatening. Do you have any idea what you've put me through? The stress? The sleepless nights? You've been stealing from us. I've been borrowing. I was going to pay it back once the Morrison Holdings deal went through. But then you had to start asking questions, getting suspicious. So you decided to kill me? It wasn't supposed to be like this. Morrison's voice cracked with emotion. You were supposed to die in a car accident. Quick, painless. Your father would have grieved, but he would have moved on. The money would have gone to your brother. The business would have continued. And eventually I could have made everything right. But I didn't die. No, you didn't. And then you kept getting lucky, kept surviving, and I had to get more creative. Do you know how hard it is to arrange a gas leak that looks accidental? Or to set up a shooting that can't be traced back to you? Through the wire, they could hear Daphne breathing heavily. David, we can work this out. The money isn't important to me. It's too late for that. I've already hired people, made commitments. If I don't eliminate you tonight, they'll eliminate me. What people? The kind of people you borrow $50 million from when the banks won't help you anymore. In the van, Torres was coordinating with her team through hand signals. Rodolfo could see her people moving into position on the tactical display. I'm sorry, Daphne. I really am. You've always been like a daughter to me. But you should have minded your own business. They heard the distinctive sound of a gun being cocked. Move, 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 Torres shouted into her radio. The warehouse erupted in chaos. Shouts, running footsteps, Torres's team announcing themselves as they stormed in from multiple entrances. Drop your weapon. Get on the ground! FBI. Through it all they could hear Daphne screaming, and then abruptly silence. Justice and new beginnings. Daphne? Daphne, are you okay? Torres's voice came through the radio. I'm okay. I'm okay. He dropped the gun when your team came in. He's crying. Rodolfo closed his eyes in relief so profound it left him dizzy. David Morrison was arrested on charges of attempted murder, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The investigation that followed revealed the full scope of his crimes, not just the $50 million he'd stolen from Castellanos Industries, but another $20 million he'd borrowed from a criminal organization to cover his gambling debts. He was desperate. Torres explained to Rodolfo and Daphne during the debriefing. When people get that desperate, they convince themselves that terrible actions are justified. He probably really believed he would pay the money back eventually. And the people he borrowed from? We've identified most of them. They'll be prosecuted as accessories to attempted murder. The legal proceedings took months. During that time, Daphne moved back in with her father and gradually resumed something resembling a normal life. Rodolfo found his own life fundamentally changed, not just by the relationship that had developed with Daphne, but by the perspective that came from living through such an intense experience. You saved my life, Daphne told him one evening as they walked through Central Park, the same park where someone had tried to kill her months earlier. I bought you a cup of coffee. You showed me that there were still good people in the world when I was beginning to think there weren't any. That gave me the courage to trust Rebecca, to involve my father, to fight back instead of just running. They stopped beside the lake, watching ducks glide across the water as the sun set behind the Manhattan skyline. What happens now? Rodolfo asked. It was a question that had been hanging between them for weeks. The immediate danger was over. Morrison was in prison and Daphne was safe. But what did that mean for them? Now, she said, I'd like to take you up on that dinner invitation, the one you made in the coffee shop. I think I can arrange that, but not at a restaurant. Your place? I was thinking we could cook together. At your place. Rodolfo smiled. I should warn you, I'm a terrible cook. Then it's a good thing I'm not dating you for your culinary skills. What are you dating me for? She was quiet for a moment, watching the ducks. Because you saw me at my lowest moment and decided to help without asking anything in return. Because when I told you my life was in danger, you didn't run away. Because you're kind without being naive, and strong without being arrogant. She turned to face him. I still can't believe this all started, because her card got declined. Maya said, shaking her head. Makes you think twice about judging people by appearances. As the evening wound down, Rodolfo and Daphne found themselves alone on the terrace overlooking the garden, where their guests were, dancing under strings of lights. Any regrets? He asked, putting his arm around his new wife. About marrying you? Never. About the money, the attention, everything that comes with being Mrs. Rodriguez. She'd kept her last name professionally, but taken his personally, a compromise that worked for both of them. You know what I realized? She said, leaning against him. The money was never really mine anyway. It was my grandfather's, then my father's, then it was supposed to be mine. But it was always just there. I never had to earn it. Never had to fight for it. And now? Now I have something that's actually mine. Something I chose, something that chose me back. Something that's worth more than all the trust funds in the world. What's that? A partner. Someone who sees me, really sees me, and loves what he sees. They stood quietly for a moment, listening to the music and laughter from the garden below. So what's next for us? Rodolfo asked. Well, I've been thinking about that. I want to start a foundation, use some of the money to help people who are in the kind of desperate situations David was in before they make the choices he made. Financial counseling, debt management, that, but also just kindness, programs that help people when they're at their lowest point, when they feel like they have no options left. Sometimes all it takes is someone showing up and saying, "I see you and I want to help." Rodolfo smiled. It was so perfectly. Daphne, taking her traumatic experience and finding a way to use it to help others. And what about you? Still want to be a marketing consultant forever? He'd been thinking about that question a lot lately. The experience of the past year had changed his perspective on what really mattered. Actually, I was thinking I might like to work for this foundation you're planning. I'm pretty good at helping people figure out how to reach their audience. Maybe I could help reach people who need help, but don't know where to find it. Is that your way of asking for a job, Mr. Rodriguez? That's my way of asking if my wife would like a business partner. I think I'd like that very much. As they kissed under the stars, Rodolfo reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. It had started with such a simple act, paying for a stranger's coffee, and led to love, danger, justice, and now a shared future dedicated to helping others. You know, he said, I think I'm going to start carrying more cash, just in case I meet someone else who needs help buying coffee. Daphne laughed, the sound ringing out over the garden like music. Just promise me one thing, she said. Anything. Next time you decide to rescue a mysterious woman in a coffee shop, make sure you invite me along. I want to see how you work your magic. Deal. But I should warn you, I think I'm a one-rescue kind of guy. I found my person. Good, she said, kissing him again. Because your person found you too. And so ends our story. Of how a simple act of kindness, paying a stranger's coffee bill, led to the most extraordinary love story filled with danger, mystery, and ultimately triumph. The lesson here isn't just about helping others, though that's certainly important. It's about being open to the unexpected, about recognizing that every person we meet has a story we know nothing about. Rodolfo could have ignored Daphne's embarrassment in the coffee shop, could have minded his own business when her card was declined. Instead, he chose kindness, and that choice changed both their lives forever. Daphne could have remained isolated in her world of wealth and privilege, trusting no one and depending only on hired security. Instead, she chose to trust a stranger who had shown her genuine kindness, and that choice saved her life. Sometimes the most profound connections come from the simplest gestures. A cup of coffee, a moment of kindness, a willingness to help someone in need. These small acts can ripple outward in ways we never expect, creating connections that change everything. The next time you see someone struggling, someone who looks like they could use a helping hand, remember Rodolfo and Daphne's story. You never know who that person might be, what they might be going through, or how your simple act of kindness might change both your lives forever. After all, the best love stories don't always start with grand gestures. Sometimes they start with something as simple as paying a stranger's bill, never imagining the surprising secret they might be hiding. Thank you for joining me for this incredible story. If you enjoyed it, please like this video and let me know in the comments which part surprised you the most. And remember, never underestimate the power of a simple act of kindness. You never know where it might lead. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories, and I'll see you in the next one.